Well, that was a great panel, and I'm really very appreciative to be here today on behalf of Intel and the Atlantic. I want to thank the Atlantic team, many of whom I've known over the years, for putting on today's event. It's an outstanding agenda, and we're really pleased to be a part of it. There were a couple of comments made in the panel that I think I'll just dovetail right off of in my brief remarks, talking about being in this for the long game, talking about there is no silver bullet. So accurate, and that's kind of the Intel story that I want to share with you briefly this morning. You know, in Silicon Valley, one of my favorite lines is, "You are what you measure." And we talk about that a lot at Intel. I know all the companies in this room probably talk about it as well. So when we talk about being a diverse employer of choice and achieving the goals that we've set out, obviously the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set those goals and we're going to work to achieve them. I'll tell you briefly our story, and hopefully it'll resonate in this room, because I think part of what's great about today is that sense of openness and transparency and sharing best practices and learning from each other, and that's what I'm going to try to capture right now. So with Intel, we set a very ambitious goal to achieve full representation among women and underrepresented minorities by 2020. In fact, we want to be the first tech company to do that. So we're working to do that. Now, how are we doing that? A couple different ways. We initially kicked off a $300 million fund to fund programs that will help us achieve that goal, and we've been working very hard ever since last year to implement programming that will help achieve that goal, build the pipeline necessary to do so. The second thing is, this year we set a goal for 45% hiring of underrepresented minorities and women in 2016. At our mid-year point, we measured it, of course, we were at 43.4% of that 45% goal, so making very good progress. We'll know more about 4 weeks from now on how we did for the complete year. The other thing we did I thought was pretty neat. I've done a lot of economic impact studies for Intel, measuring our impact in our site communities from our investments in employment. We did an economic impact study with a firm called Dahlberg Global Development Advisors to try to quantify the economic impact of what full representation looks like from a diverse perspective. And that study found roughly $500 billion of economic output associated with full representation in the tech community alone. That means more than a 1% impact, 1% increase in US GDP. Significantly strong macro numbers in support of this. And that gets to kind of the business case of this, something that I think is kind of a neat story that's maybe undertold, right? Something that, frankly, I think we could be comfortable telling. Obviously, we do these things because they're the right thing to do, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But the business case as well, I think, is important. And I'll tell you a little bit about, just from an Intel perspective, why I think it matters. You're familiar with Intel, and you probably picture Intel as a PC company that makes great microprocessors. We so badly want to be more than that, right? We're trying really hard to be in mobile computing. We're trying very hard to be successful in the Internet of Things. We're working very hard to get into these new spaces, autonomous driving, drones. You see the investments that we're making. For many, many years, and I've been with Intel for about 20 now, Intel, I think our team has built wonderful engines, Ferraris, if you will, for PCs. As the market has evolved, not everybody needs a Ferrari, right? And I think we're understanding that. The team that, for example, is building those Ferrari engines, I don't know that I want that team designing wearable sunglasses, right? It's a different skill set. And for Intel to be successful, I'm so proud of our leadership team, our CEO on down, who've really articulated this message. For Intel to be successful as we move into new markets, it's imperative for us to get the best of the best from the entire spectrum, the entire diverse spectrum, as we move into things like fashion and wearables, cars and drones. The company has evolved, the talent has to evolve with it. That includes full participation, full representation across the entire spectrum. So Intel's made these investments not just because it's the right thing to do, but to help perpetuate business success for the long term. The last couple things I'll say on this is, you think about it at a macro level, why it matters to Intel, the data, measuring yourself, all the things that all companies do. And then you think about it on a personal level, right? So Intel, last week our CEO sends out a note to the employees in recognition of International Human Rights Day, which was on Saturday. And with that note, there was a kind of a call to action. Employees who want to make a contribution to the school or nonprofit of their choice, the Intel Foundation will match it on a 2-to-1 basis. So of course, last night I go online and I make a contribution to a couple different nonprofits, my alma mater, and those contributions are effectively tripled, thanks to the generosity of our executive team and the Intel Foundation. So then I go online to read some of the comments. Of course, it's all in our employee intranet. And it won't surprise you to know that many of the feedback you get within your companies are, why is this a focus, right? Isn't this a distraction? And somebody referred to it as hoopla, right? And I thought that was an interesting word, but the next comment below that was somebody telling a story about gender transitioning in the late 90s and how difficult that was and how their manager made it possible for them to do it, to be successful, and that what is hoopla to you is Intel's full support of me. And I thought, really, that's just today's example of why we do what we do, right? It matters from a business perspective. It matters, because it's the right thing to do. But it matters because it impacts the people we work with every single day, the people we care about, people we love. Making a difference in their lives is really something that motivates, I'm sure, all of us today. And I'm just pleased to be here and be a part of it. Thank you very much.